Hey, it's Aaron the Metal Theologian. So, yeah, I have a few records to talk about today. And everything I've sort of been thinking about is like sort of the periphery of like, well, I've been listening to a lot of my new wave British heavy metal 45s again, the NWOBHM stuff, right? I've sort of been looking at the periphery because I got one from '85 not too long ago that, is there in spirit. I mean, I still maintain that, it's kind of hard to call it new when like Slayer's already like an established band. I mean, it's not really, shit like this isn't really the new wave of British heavy metal anymore than, But I also found a few things sort of on the earlier end. So there are a few from like 1978 that I'm going to show today. I'll probably mix them up with some of the other ones, so I want to sample these for y'all. Because these guys are all pretty obscure. So this is who we're listening to right now. This is Anniversary. A really heavy sounding name, right? Yeah, there's the back. And they really look pretty 70s, right? And this is really pretty much like 70s standards for heavy metal. But if you compare this with some of the shit that was coming out around, like 1980-ish, I think it fits, There were better bands from around then that, are better known and more highly regarded, maybe even, that weren't really any heavier than this, And these guys, as far as I know, they just did the 145 and they did the songs. It's actually an EP with 4 songs, so... Yeah, I was trying to look at. I have 4 in that section that are 1978. And, usually since people talk about the 1979 as being like the beginning of it, that's some kind of noteworthy to me. So there's Anniversary. And I think I've shown this one kind of recently, but this one, Mr. Rock and Roll by Samson, definitely has a sound probably about comparable as far as heaviness to this. Maybe a little bit heavier, I'm probably not going to play this one because I think this one will get an ad put on it if I do. The other one's a little more confident, but definitely has that sort of primitive thing going on. And I don't know, I'm not going to shit on like the other Samson records, but I mean, Bruce Dickinson already, like, by the time Bruce was in the band, even though it still counts as far as how early it is and that, he just sounded so much like a fully formed, like, heavy metal singer that it almost puts a thumb on the scale a little bit, you know what I mean? It almost sort of goes outside the lines of what I sort of consider to be within this sound, but, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to shit on later Samson because the fact is it's really good. I have the first 3 albums. Actually, the first was the weakest of the 3. The 2 with Bruce are fantastic, and I don't have the 4th one. But this one single is still like earlier than just about anybody else. So there's that. And this is one I first heard of. This one, God, a long time ago. I didn't really investigate it because I heard it wasn't very good. So, yeah, well, I came across it cheap. It's Terracotta. This is, if there's one out of the ones that I'm showing today that's kind of a stretch, it's probably this one. These guys actually, I'll put this on next so you can compare it. But this is such a great song, I don't want to interrupt it yet. This one, though, it almost sounds more like some of the early bands that were sort of on the periphery of punk go. At least the stuff that people sort of retrospectively call, you're not going to compare this to like Septic Death, right? But if you're thinking like, bands like, I mean, you have to go to like Talking Heads or something. You can go to like Television. These guys actually kind of remind me of Television a little bit. Not so much in the songwriting or anything like that, as much as in the, like the sound. Like the way the guitar is played and that sort of thing. I might put this on again a little bit, but I'll put on Terracotta for a minute. Just take care of it. Check out that indie looking label. It's so awesome. Love that kind of shit. Yeah, so this is Terracotta. This record is also 78. Also a 4-track EP. This one actually plays at 45, interestingly. Because the other 2 play at 33. This one and the other one I'm going to show. This one's really not very heavy. It really kind of doesn't deserve the moniker heavy metal at all. It's really just like a rock 45. Yeah, you see, I mean, it's kind of a stretch. Not even kind of, it's a stretch, period. You know the way he's singing too? That kind of reminds me of like Tom Verlaine, you know? I suppose you could say Richard Hell too, but he sounded more sort of snotty, whereas this guy just sounds kind of like wimpy, you know? Yeah, I mean, the people who said this wasn't a very good single were pretty much right, you know? I mean, I can still listen to it and get a smile out of it, so I'm not going to get too far, you know, to get down on this thing too hard, but Terracotta is not like going to change your life as far as records you might hear go. I think I paid about $5 for this thing, you know? You see what I mean about that sort of like, I mean, not really punk vibe, but, you know, almost more like, almost reminds me more of like, I mean, I said television, like maybe Big Star, you know? Like that kind of shit, you know? They do kind of have the look, like the one guy looking pretty out of place and the other one sort of just standing in front of a brick wall like that. I definitely don't think this is a bad record, it's just also not a great record. I'll let this run for a couple minutes, but then I'll put this one on. This is the other one. This is kind of the most recent one that I found. This band's called The Next Band. And yeah, this is the 4-tracker. And this one's pretty rockin'. You know, again, it's 78. It doesn't sound like, I mean, like Samson, right? Or like Iron Maiden or anything like that. But they were definitely sort of starting to lean in the direction. And, you know, like the other ones here, especially this one, but all three of them, they're kind of filed with the new wave stuff because it kind of feels like that's where they belong aesthetically, even if maybe they're a little bit short of like the heavy metal mark. You know, again, it's not the Satan single, but, you know, it's pretty good stuff. So we'll come back to that. I talked about Czarface a bunch last time, so I was listening to a lot of Czarface, and I still kind of am, actually. But another band that I discovered that I don't think I talked about is Dr. Bionic. And I actually got this out of the hip-hop section at the local record store. I kind of think it's a stretch to call these hip-hop. They're kind of more like instrumental, like jazz-funk records. There's some hip-hop moves on some of the songs. You know, like when it jumps out, I snagged that one and then this other one, Terrestrial Radio. The first track on this one definitely has kind of a hip-hop beat, so, you know, you can make the argument, but it's like maybe one every 3 songs there's kind of a little bit of that more than, you know, it being sort of hip-hop. So, you know, if you're looking for a rap record, don't get Dr. Bionic. But if you're looking for something that's like, you know, just kind of has a really cool sort of jazzy sound to it, it's definitely funky, but it's sort of understated and more sort of like the jazz funk, maybe with less sort of emphasis on, I mean, frankly, soloing and virtuosity and that stuff. I mean, not that I think these guys are incompetent, but it's just, with these guys, it's always more sort of about the groove than about the, you know, than about taking a solo. You know, there's no, I mean, I don't know who any of these people on here are. It's not like, you know, Wayne Shorter needs some room to stretch out or something. It's just sort of some randos, and I really like the records they put together, so. Yeah, I just have these two. But I've been playing them kind of a lot, man. I mean, I kind of got this based on the cover, too. Both of these, and it's sort of the case of, like, the cover kind of tell you what the record's about, because, this one definitely has. I mean, I saw this and I was like, yeah, I've got to hear that, you know? Oh, Jesus, look at the back there. I'm all in. Yeah, this is about as heavy as Terracotta gets. So, again, going as far back as 78, the shit isn't sounding super metallic. Now, I'm sort of stopping short of saying not metal because I'm trying to sort of allow for, the 70s definition of metal. You know, if y'all watch Scott Waters, he's definitely been known to go on a rant occasionally about how, you know, these bands that we now call we now tend to call hard rock, I should say, were considered heavy metal back when they were active. You know, like early Scorpions, Ted Nugent, UFO, shit like that, Led Zeppelin, you know? And just because they don't really sound the same way to us is more about sort of the words changing than about what was or wasn't considered heavy metal when those bands were coming out. So, you know, by that standard, if you're considering Aerosmith heavy metal, then really all these singles are heavy metal. But if you're looking for like that new wave of British heavy metal sound that I've been known to talk about on occasion, these are kind of on the edge of that. This one's really good though. Actually, this is probably my favorite of the lot here. You know, I don't know. Actually, it might be Anniversary. This is the next band though. So we're sort of going out on a limb with the major key here, right? Look at that fur coat. And that fucking dog just sitting there. Kind of give him credit for that. It's a great song, isn't it? Like the song is rocking, the performance is good. It has a little bit of a dual guitar thing going on there. Yeah, oh, here's another one I pulled out. Just because we dig into the obscure shit around here doesn't mean we don't appreciate our Funkadelic. This is one of my all-time favorite records, too. It took me a while to sort of settle on this one as being my favorite Funkadelic record. But yeah, it's just fantastic, man. I mean, Free Your Mind and Your Ass Will Follow is more sort of psychedelic. The first one kind of has more of a persistent groove. I pulled this one out too, which is sort of like the lost Funkadelic record, it feels like. America Eats Its Young. I mean, it's also really good, but this one almost feels like it's sort of caught in another dimension somehow, you know what I mean? Like, the songs are there, they even reworked some songs they done like back in the 60s as the Parliaments, you know? There are a couple really old things on here. It sort of feels like a transitional album, though, between those first three, and then like the ones that came with, you know, Tales of Kid Funkadelic and shit like that. The ones, you know, Let's Take It to the Stage. The ones that are more sort of directly like funky, you know, Cosmic Slop even. And I like those records. I do think that the Westbound records by Funkadelic are a lot better than the Warner records that came later on, like starting like with One Nation Under a Groove and that. I mean, Funkadelic really never got as disco as Parliament kind of did, but Funkadelic kind of got into that too, just to a certain degree on those later records. And honestly, I've never completely bought into the whole like Funkadelic thing either, because even though it was the same like core guys and I mean all sort of George Clinton, Parliament and Funkadelic really had their own identities as two different bands, and I kind of feel like it sells both of them short to sort of lump them together into that single thing, you know? Like these early Funkadelic records are like really sort of psychedelic and kind of weird, and almost more like rock records than like funk records, you know? Whereas the Parliament records were sort of unabashedly funk. I mean, even on Up for the Downstroke, you know, it was already a lot more sort of, you know, groove focused and sort of psychedelia focused, you know. All the records were groovy. They just sort of expressed it in different ways, you know what I mean? So anyway, this is an easy one to overlook. I feel like this record sort of gets lost in the catalog, but yeah, it's really good, man. I don't love it as much as I love Maggot Brain, but it's a really good record, man. I really like it a lot. Like I said, I've been listening to some Czarface too. That one's just sitting here. This next song is probably my favorite one on the EP. Close Encounter. It's pretty rockin'. For 78, this is definitely on point. You could almost imagine this one being rejiggered just a little bit and performed by early Iron Maiden. You know? I'm gonna let it run for a second while I grab another drink, actually, because I just finished my beverage. I'm thirsty. right. Here we go. Whoa. Yeah, happy to let that shit run for a moment to give you a little bit of impression of it. Again, what a terrible name, right? The next band, like, that might be even worse than Anniversary, although Anniversary is a pretty terrible name. Samson is a fine name, but Terracotta is kind of a weak name too, so. Alright, what else are we playing around here? Oh, there's a little room for Lee Perry. Yeah, a couple other favorites here too, actually. I pulled this one out because I love Stevie Wonder, and this is probably my favorite Stevie record. Absolutely fantastic. Every song, man. Big Brother is probably my current favorite. Superstition is always great. Yeah, Big Brother is probably my current favorite one, though. But, you know, it's another one where I sort of listen to it and have a different favorite song every time. So, you know. Just so well constructed, too. You know, You Are the Sunshine of My Life works great at the beginning. And I Believe When I Fall in Love It'll Be Forever works great as the last song. Just really a perfect record. So good. And this one, which always makes me think of John Bip Bop Boom. This is probably my favorite Riot record, though. It took me a while to get my head around Riot. Yeah, interestingly, I don't know. It just took me a while to get my head around the songs, I think, really. And this is really the one that was sort of unlocked the door for me. So it's still my favorite. It's funny, too. Now that I've gotten into this one, like, every song on this thing I think is fantastic. I mean, obviously, Swords and Tequila, but Fire Down Other, Outlaw, Run for Your Life. It's all great, man. So don't be snoozing on Riot around here. So here's another one where I did a little experiment, okay? You know, it's funny. One thing I've talked about with my younger kid who's been collecting CDs is the concept of the record that everyone hates. I might have talked about this on the channel before, too. But, like, a lot of bands will have one record that, like, everyone just hates, you know? Like, you know, sometimes if it's like Alice Cooper, there are a whole bunch of crappy records, you know what I mean? But like, with Judas Priest, Point of Entry is kind of the one that everyone hates, you know? I mean, there's Turbo and Ram It Down, and people will argue about which of those is worse, but that's sort of because they just shed themselves, right? They sort of became something they weren't before, and that thing kind of sucked, you know? Then they really bought into the whole, like, 80s, you know, everything that was bad about the 80s, so I kind of feel like it's not really the same thing. But Point of Entry was still like, that was Judas Priest, but it was just a shitty record, you know what I mean? So, I gotta figure something else out to put on. Something that won't get me a fucking, ad put on the video if I can help it. We'll play a couple minutes of this one. This one's pretty mediocre, but if you're curious what Syntron sounds like, I assume that's what they're called. They're from New York. This is on In Rock Records. They do a cover of Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival, so I'll spare you all and play the side 2 of it. Yeah, this isn't a great record, but it's a pretty enjoyable record, you know. It's kind of one of those things where I don't know if I would have dug this record when I was in my 30s. Because it might have just been too crappy for me then, you know. But now I'm sort of like, I listen to it and I go, this is fine, you know. They're giving it their all, and it's not too hard to find something to like about a record like this if you're into it, you know, if you can just sort of dig it for what it is. Anyway, The Herbie Hancock record that everyone hates is this one. That's funny because there are other records that are kind of not looked on very favorably and other ones, but this is kind of the one where everyone goes, yeah, that was a disco record. It's a fucking piece of shit. Feats Don't Fail Me Now by Herbie Hancock. Just came up my local shop and it was looking at me and I was like, you know something? I'm gonna give it a chance. I'm gonna fucking roll the dice. So I brought it up and I sort of told the guy what I was doing. He was like, well, I can throw it on for a minute if you want. I was like, okay, throw it on. So he threw it on for a minute for me, and it was kind of disco-y, man. And I was like, but you know something, man, it's really not that bad. I kind of want to spend some time with it. Well, I've listened to this thing a couple times now, and if you're looking for like a jazz record, you might be disappointed. But it has some pretty good grooves, you know? It's not like chameleon type of grooves or what like Herbie was doing just a couple years earlier, like even on the record like Thrust, you know? Let alone Headhunters. This thing kind of has some warts. It's not the greatest singer, but that's a pretty good rock riff right there, you know? It's a little basic, but it scratches the itch. Yeah, back to Herbie though. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just that I like did so much mental preparation that when I finally listened to this thing, I was like, oh, that's pretty good actually. But I was kind of digging it, you know? You know, I probably own like, I don't know, maybe 14 or 15 Herbie Hancock records. And I would probably put this pretty close to the bottom as far as how much I like it. But you know, I gave Sunlight a chance too not too long ago, and I didn't really mind that too much. That was pretty much fine. You know, I really don't need to hear Herbie singing, like singing, but I can pretty much handle the vocoder. So yeah, you know, if you're inclined to be open to this sort of thing, this record might actually be worth a listen. I found it pretty enjoyable, you know? And I'm a pretty big Herbie Hancock fan, so if I'm putting this at the bottom, that's because I really like Herbie a lot, you know? Because this record's pretty good. But it's not hard to see why this is the record that everyone hates, you know what I mean? Because it definitely sounds like, he lost his way, or maybe the coke was just really good. I don't know that Herbie was ever that really indulgent when it comes to that sort of thing, you know? You know, not like, say, Miles Davis, you know, where you listen to some of those records and you go, yeah, he had some good coke. Now, those are good records, by the way. I'm not shitting on those Miles Davis records, I'm just saying. I might shit on Miles Davis in concert a little bit. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't regret having spent $7 on this thing. I might feel a little bit taken advantage of if I'd spent $25 on it. But it's pretty okay, you know? And now I know. I've formed my own opinion, you know what I mean? That's sort of the other thing. Because sometimes the record that everyone hates is actually really good, you know? Or sometimes it is, and sometimes I'm just being contrarian, and I can't always tell you honestly which one I'm doing. Pulled this out. Still all over the place. I don't usually do this, but I've just sort of been all over the place that I listen to. This is probably my favorite Pretty Maids record, though. You know, it feels like, you know, it'd be hipper to say the first album or the EP, but this is the one that I reach for the most often, and I hated this when it came out. I thought it was just a bunch of synthesizer bullshit, and look what cornballs they look like. But I love this record, man. Fucking Future World by Pretty Maids, I'm in. Or I might say that we all live in Future World. Awesome record. Don't let the synth put you off. Like when it comes in and he's doodling around on it in the very first song. Like let the riffs develop, and pretty soon you won't mind those synths at all anymore. That was sort of my trajectory with it anyway. You know, first I was like, what the fuck is this? And I sort of let it go and just listened to the rest of it, and I was like, yeah, those synths don't really sound all that bad, you know. Of course, now under the pernicious influence of people like Thomas over at Merciful Metal, I'm a lot more open to that kind of synth shit than I used to be. What else do we have? So I've been listening to a lot of JPEG Mafia. Got this one recently. It's a great record. Yeah, I don't really feel qualified to review this one yet. Maybe next time, but I'm still taking it in. But there's been a lot of JPEG Mafia being listened to around here. And yes, it does make me smile to have a channel with the word metal in the title and be listening to like modern hip-hop shit. But you know something? This channel is all about learning and about growth and about personal development and dick jokes. Yeah, I think that's probably about all I've got to say today, man. I've got a few outliers here. Played this one a couple times. Fucking Slaughter, Serpato. Hasn't all just been like shit of sort of this level of heaviness. There's been a little bit of this too. This really is a great record. It's one that I came too late to. I didn't even know this existed back in the day. And when I first heard it, I was like, yeah, that's kind of sloppy and shitty sounding, you know? I almost feel like this was like the next railroad stop after Dissection from Canada. Like the first stop was like, you know, Razor and Exciter. Then the next stop was Dissection, and then this was the next stop after that. Like these guys like Aggressor, you know what I mean? Like on sort of going down the Canadian train. So like, I heard this before I heard Dissection, and I kind of just thought it was crappy. Then I got the Dissection record, and it's like just a matter of taking the stations in the right order. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't go from San Francisco to San Diego without going through LA. You know? I don't know if that's the best analogy, but I don't know. It made me laugh. Yeah, and then let me plug these Slaughterhouse records a little bit too, because these are recent reissues on No Life Until Metal, invoking Scott Waters' name once again, since that's his label. But these are really nice reissues of a couple records I kind of ignored back in the day. I went ahead and grabbed both. I think it's just really good, fast metal records. This one was 91, so you know, not the earliest of this sort of style, but man, they've got the sound right. They don't play games. I mean, I guess they sort of play games a little bit with that cover, you know. But just solid listens, man. Really good metal records. So yeah, that's about all I've got for today. Thanks for watching. It's a little bit of a mess, but you know, I'll probably talk about some hippie shit next time, so it'll be even more of a mess. Thanks for watching. Always appreciate it. And I'll reply to your comments.